The envelope trembled in my hands as I stared at the bank statement. Zero balance. The account my grandmother had set up for me, the one that was supposed to help me open my own gallery someday, completely drained. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I flipped through the transaction history again, my finger stopping at the last withdrawal. $4,775 transferred to Mitchell Family Trust. The same day my brother Ryan announced his destination wedding in Santorini. I looked up from the paper to see my mother's pearl necklace catching the light as she flitted around the dining room, arranging place cards for my brother's engagement dinner. The expensive caterers were setting up in our kitchen, and my father was uncorking bottles of champagne that cost more than my monthly rent. Emma, honey, could you move your things? The wedding planner needs to set up her presentation board. Right where you're sitting, my mother said, barely glancing my way. I clutched the bank statement tighter, my voice barely audible. My inheritance is gone. My mother froze for half a second, then continued adjusting the flowers. Oh, that. Well, we were going to discuss it with you after the engagement dinner. Discuss what exactly? That you emptied an account that Grandma Eleanor specifically left for me? It's a family decision, Emma. Ryan and Olivia's wedding is important for all of us. Besides, you're not even using that money. You're still working at that little cafe downtown instead of doing something meaningful. Something inside me shattered, quietly, like a glass breaking underwater. No dramatic explosion, just a clean break that changed everything. Growing up as Emma Mitchell in the coastal town of Bayfield meant living in the shadow of expectations I could never quite fulfill. Our Victorian family home stood majestically overlooking the bay, its weathered blue exterior and ornate trim a testament to 4 generations of Mitchells. To tourists, it was charming. To me, it was a beautiful cage where I never quite belonged. My brother Ryan was the golden child, quarterback, valedictorian, and now a successful corporate attorney engaged to Olivia Parker, whose family owned half the real estate in 3 neighboring counties. My parents never tried to hide their preference. While Ryan's childhood bedroom remained a shrine to his accomplishments, trophies polished weekly by my mother, my room had been converted to a home office before I'd even finished college. I was the daughter with the impractical art degree, the one who worked at Tidal Grounds Cafe while trying to save enough to open my own gallery someday. The quiet one who'd stayed in Bayfield while everyone else had made something of themselves. The only person who ever really saw me was Grandma Eleanor. She'd been an artist too, though the family preferred to call it a charming hobby. She'd sneak me into her studio on the 3rd floor when I was little, letting me play with her paints and canvases while she told stories about her travels through Europe as a young woman. Not everyone is meant to follow the same path, Emma, she'd say. Some of us need to wander a bit to find where we belong. When she died 3 years ago, she left the family house to my parents, her vintage car collection to Ryan, and a separate account to me, $50,000 with a handwritten note, for the gallery that will hang your beautiful work someday. The world needs to see through your eyes, my darling. It was the first time anyone had treated my dreams as something valuable, something worth investing in. I'd been so careful with that money, adding to it slowly with my cafe tips, researching small business loans, and scouting affordable rental spaces in the arts district. The gallery had a name, Eleanor's, and a business plan taped to my apartment wall. It was no longer just a dream but a goal with a timeline, and now it was gone. As the caterers finished setting up and guests began to arrive for the engagement dinner, I poured myself a glass of the expensive champagne and retreated to the window seat in the library, my hiding spot since childhood. Through the doorway, I could see Ryan holding court in the living room, his arm around Olivia as she flashed her enormous diamond ring. "It'll be the wedding of the season," I overheard my mother telling her friends. The venue alone cost a fortune, but the Mitchells have always done things properly. I drained my glass, the bitter irony burning more than the bubbles. The Mitchells did indeed do things properly, as long as it was for the right Mitchell. My phone buzzed with a text from Grace Wilson, the owner of Tidal Grounds and the closest thing I had to a mentor in town. "Everything okay? You didn't. Show for your shift." I'd completely forgotten. "I'm sorry. Family emergency. Cover for me?" Her response came quickly. "Always. Need rescue?" I typed back a quick "later" and slipped my phone away as my father appeared in the doorway. "There you are. Your mother's been looking everywhere. Ryan's about to make a toast, and we need the whole family present." His eyes narrowed at the bank statement still crumpled in my hand. "This isn't the time, Emma." "When is the time, Dad? After you've spent every cent that Grandma wanted me to have?" He sighed, straightening his tie, a nervous habit when confrontation loomed. "That money is being put to good use. Ryan's wedding is an investment in the family's future. Olivia's connections alone. It wasn't yours to invest." My voice was soft but steady. "Emma, you need to understand something about family responsibility. That gallery idea is a pipe dream. You've been talking about it for years with nothing to show. Meanwhile, your brother is making real connections, building something meaningful." Grandma didn't see it that way. His expression hardened. "Your grandmother was sentimental. The real world doesn't run on sentiment." Before I could respond, my mother's voice rang out from the hallway. "Robert! Emma! Everyone's waiting!" My father gave me a look that said our conversation was over. "We'll discuss this tomorrow. Tonight, you're going to smile and celebrate your brother's engagement like a member of this family. Is that clear?" I stood slowly, smoothing my dress. Crystal. The dining room glittered with candlelight and crystal. 20 of Bayfield's most prominent citizens gathered around our antique mahogany table. I took my assigned seat, at the far end, between my mother's second cousin and Ryan's college roommate, as far from the center of attention as possible. Ryan stood, champagne flute in hand, and the room quieted immediately. "Olivia and I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Family means everything to us, which is why we're so excited to announce that we've secured the exclusive Petra Cliffside Resort in Santorini for our wedding this summer." Gasps and murmurs of approval rippled through the room. The Petra was infamous for its waiting list and astronomical prices. "We're flying out the entire wedding party for a week of celebration," Ryan continued, beaming at Olivia. "And we couldn't have done it without my parents' incredible generosity." My mother wiped a theatrical tear from her eye as my father raised his glass. "To Ryan and Olivia, may your union bring as much joy as you've brought to our lives." Everyone drank. I set my untouched champagne on the table. "Speech from the sister," someone called out, and suddenly all eyes were on me. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady. 20 expectant faces turned toward me, including my brother's, his expression a mixture of entitlement and mild concern that I might embarrass him. "To Ryan and Olivia," I began, voice surprisingly steady. "May your marriage be built on honesty, respect, and honoring the wishes of those who came before us." An awkward silence followed as I sat down. My mother laughed nervously, quickly directing attention to the appetizers being served. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I smiled when appropriate, answered questions about my little job at the coffee shop, and deflected inquiries about my own non-existent love life. All the while, the knowledge of what they'd done burned inside me like acid. After the last guest departed and Ryan and Olivia left for their downtown condo, I found myself alone with my parents in the kitchen. "What was that toast about?" my mother hissed, aggressively loading the dishwasher. "I was just wishing them well," I replied, leaning against the counter. "Don't play innocent. You were trying to make some kind of point." "The point is that you stole from me, Mom. You and Dad took money that Grandma specifically left for me." My father slammed his hand on the counter. "That's enough. We did not steal anything." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. That money is still in the family. In Ryan's wedding fund. Which benefits all of us. Do you have any idea what the Parkers can do for this family? For this town? Olivia's father is talking about developing the entire waterfront. That means contracts, opportunities. None of which has anything to do with me or what Grandma wanted. My mother stopped loading dishes and turned to face me. Emma, you need to grow up. Your grandmother filled your head with unrealistic expectations. An art gallery? In Bayfield? It would fail within a year, and then what? We were protecting you from yourself. You had no right, I whispered. We had every right, my father countered. We're your parents. Sometimes that means making hard decisions for your own good. And the timing is just coincidence? Right. When Ryan needs a fancy wedding. My parents exchanged a look I couldn't quite decipher. Ryan has prospects, my mother finally said. He has a future that will bring prestige back to the Mitchell name. The Parkers expect a certain level of presentation. We couldn't risk losing this connection. The brutal honesty of it stunned me into silence. They had made a calculated investment, and I wasn't worth investing in. I think I'll stay at my apartment tonight, I said, pushing away from the counter. Don't be dramatic, Emma, my mother sighed. Your old room is made up. My old room is your office now, remember? The guest room, then. It's too late to drive back to town. But I was already heading for the door. I couldn't spend another minute in that house. As I reached for my coat, my father called after me. This conversation isn't over, Emma. We expect you to be reasonable about this. I paused, hand on the doorknob. You're right. It's not over. The drive back to my apartment was a blur of tears and rage. I nearly missed the turn onto Main Street, my thoughts scattered and chaotic. Instead of going straight home, I found myself parking outside Tidal Grounds Cafe. A light was still on in the back office. I knocked on the service entrance and, moments later, Grace appeared, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in its usual messy bun. One look at my face told her everything she needed to know. Come on in, honey. I just made a fresh pot. Grace's office was tiny but cozy, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in local artwork, including 3 of my paintings that she'd insisted on buying, not accepting them as gifts. They did something unforgivable, I said, curling into her ancient armchair, hands wrapped around a mug of hazelnut coffee. Family usually does, she replied, settling across from me. Want to tell me about it? The whole story poured out of me, the inheritance, the empty account, the engagement dinner, all of it. Grace listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. Your grandmother was a remarkable woman, she said when I finished. Grace and Eleanor had been friends for decades, and she believed in you completely. Fat lot of good that does me now. The money's gone. Maybe, but Eleanor was strategic, not just sentimental. She wouldn't have left all her eggs in one basket. I looked up from my coffee. What do you mean? Did you know your grandmother kept journals? Detailed ones. She documented everything. Conversations, promises, betrayals. The Mitchell family history unvarnished. She showed me some of them once. I knew she wrote, but I never saw her journals. Grace leaned forward. Emma, have you been up to her studio since she died? No. Mom converted it to storage right after the funeral. Said there was nothing but old junk up there. A small, knowing smile crossed Grace's face. Interesting that they wanted you to stay away from the attic, isn't it? For the first time since discovering the empty account, I felt a flicker of something other than despair. You think there's something up there? Something they don't want me to find? I think Eleanor Mitchell was too smart to leave her favorite grandchild's future in the hands of people she didn't fully trust. I sat up straighter, mind racing. I need to get back into that house. You still have a key, don't you? I nodded. But they'll be home. Not tomorrow, they won't, Grace said with certainty. Your brother is hosting a lunch for his future in-laws at the country club. Whole family's supposed to be there. It's all your mother's talked about for weeks whenever she comes in for her skinny vanilla latte. I wasn't invited. Of course I wasn't. Their oversight is your opportunity. Grace reached across and squeezed my hand. Eleanor used to say that being underestimated was sometimes the greatest advantage a woman could have. I left Tidal Grounds with a plan forming and slept soundly for the first time in weeks. The next morning, I watched from my car across the street as my parents' Mercedes pulled out of the driveway, my mother fussing with her hat, my father adjusting his tie. I waited 15 minutes to be certain they wouldn't return for something forgotten, then walked up the familiar path to the house I'd grown up in. My key still worked. The foyer was silent and smelled of the expensive candles my mother kept, burning. I moved through the house like a ghost, past the dining room where last night's drama had unfolded, up the main staircase, and toward the narrow door that led to the third floor. The attic stairs creaked under my weight, a sound that brought back memories of sneaking up to Grandma's studio as a child, trying to avoid my mother's notice. The door at the top was locked now, something new since Eleanor's death. But I knew this house and its secrets. The key was likely in my father's desk. Sure enough, in the second drawer, tucked in a small wooden box, I found a ring of labeled keys. Attic was written in my father's precise handwriting on a small tag. Back up the stairs, heart pounding, I unlocked the door and stepped into my grandmother's former sanctuary. The room was cluttered but not chaotic, sheets draped over furniture, boxes stacked along walls, and in the center, still uncovered, my grandmother's massive oak desk where she'd written her letters and balanced her checkbook and, apparently, kept her journals. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the dormer windows as I approached the desk. The drawers were locked, but the key had to be nearby. Grandma had always kept important keys in plain sight, disguised as something else. My eyes scanned the desktop, landing on a small ceramic bluebird, a piece I'd made her in high school. When I picked it up, it rattled. I turned it over to find a tiny key taped to the bottom, the center drawer unlocked with a satisfying click. Inside, neatly arranged, were 12 leather-bound journals, each labeled with a year. I reached for the most recent, the one from the year before she died, and began to read. Eleanor's handwriting was as familiar as my own, slightly slanted, decisive strokes that reflected her character. I skimmed through pages of daily observations until a passage from 3 months before her death caught my eye. Robert and Diane visited today. The usual performance, concern about my health barely masking their impatience about their inheritance. They brought up selling the Degas again. I refused, of course. That piece is for Emma, though they don't know it yet. It's safely away from their grasping hands. The letters of provenance and the appraisal are with Harrison at the firm, along with my real will. The document Robert and Diane have seen is merely a decoy, enough to satisfy them until the time is right for Emma to know everything. My hands trembled as I read and reread the passage. A Degas? A real will? I knew my grandmother had collected art, but most of her valuable pieces had been sold years ago, or so my parents had claimed. I flipped forward, finding another entry. Harrison has set everything in place. The painting is secure in the vault, and all the documentation is with the sealed will. Emma will need to claim it in person. I've arranged for Grace to recognize the right moment, when Emma is ready or when she has greatest need. I fear it may be after I'm gone. Robert and Diane have shown their true colors these past years. They'll try to control her inheritance, I'm certain of it. But I've outmaneuvered them one last time. I sat back in my grandmother's chair, stunned. She had known. She had anticipated exactly what my parents would do and had created a safeguard. But what was this about a Degas, and who was Harrison? The name tickled at my memory. Harrison. Harrison. Mr. Harrison, my grandmother's attorney. A kind older gentleman who had attended her funeral, but whom I hadn't seen since. As I contemplated this revelation, something else caught my eye. A large flat wooden box pushed against the wall behind some storage containers. It was the type of box used to transport paintings. I carefully moved the containers and pulled the box into the center of the room. It wasn't locked, just secured with a simple latch. Inside was not a painting but a false bottom. I pried it up to reveal a sealed envelope with my name written in my grandmother's handwriting. With shaking hands, I opened it to find a letter. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then you've found your way back to my sanctuary, likely because you've discovered what your parents are capable of. I've watched them underestimate you your entire life, and while it's broken my heart, I've also seen the strength it's built in you. You believe I left you only the money in the Mitchell Trust account, but that was merely the beginning, a test. I'm afraid to see if your parents could be trusted. Based on your discovery of this letter, I must assume they failed that test spectacularly. The truth is, I've left you something far more valuable. During my years in Paris as a young woman, I acquired a small Degas pastel, a ballerina study that I've kept secret from the family. It has been authenticated and is currently in a secure vault at Harrison & Associates law firm on Marine Drive. The painting is worth approximately $2 million in today's market. Along with this letter, you'll find a sealed envelope containing the vault codes and the true copy of my will, which leaves the painting explicitly to you, with no conditions and no possibility for your parents to interfere. Your gallery dreams are not pipe dreams, my darling girl. They are your birthright and your future. I've watched you sacrifice and compromise to please those who would never do the same for you. It's time for that to end. Claim what is yours. Build the life you deserve. And remember that being underestimated is only a disadvantage if you believe it to be one. All my love, Grandma Eleanor. Inside the envelope was another smaller one, sealed with wax, and a small brass key. I sat in the dusty light of the attic, letter in hand, as the magnitude of what I'd discovered washed over me. $3.2 million. Enough to not only open my gallery but to buy the building outright. Enough to change everything. The sound of a car in the driveway jolted me back to reality. Through the window, I saw my parents' Mercedes pull up. They were home early. Quickly, I gathered the letter, the sealed envelope, and the key, slipping them into my bag. I returned the journals to the drawer, locked it, and placed the ceramic bluebird back in its spot. Everything needed to look untouched. I locked the attic door behind me, returned the key to my father's desk, and slipped out the back door just as I heard my parents enter through the front. Once safely in my car and around the corner, I pulled over, my heart racing. I needed to think, to process what I'd learned, to decide what to do next. The envelope in my bag felt like it was burning a hole through the fabric. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Lunch ended early. We missed you there. Coming home for dinner tonight? Need to discuss the inheritance situation rationally. I stared at the message, a strange calm settling over me. For the first time in my life, I held all the cards. They had no idea what I'd discovered or what was coming. I texted back, "Yes, I'll be there at 7. I have something important to show you." Then I drove straight to Marine Drive, to a stately brick building with Harrison & Associates engraved on a brass plaque. It was time to claim my real inheritance. Harrison & Associates was exactly the type of law firm you'd expect in a coastal town like Bayfield, traditional, discreet, and far more influential than its modest exterior suggested. The receptionist looked up as I entered, her professional smile faltering slightly when I gave my name. "Miss Mitchell," she said, recognition flickering in her eyes. "Mr. Harrison mentioned you might be coming in someday. Please, follow me." I was led down a hallway lined with maritime paintings to a corner office where an elderly gentleman rose from behind an immaculate desk. Theodore Harrison had aged since my grandmother's funeral. His hair was whiter, his face more lined, but his eyes remained sharp and assessing. "Emma," he said warmly, extending his hand, "you look just like your grandmother when she was your age. I've been waiting for this meeting." "You have?" He gestured for me to take a seat. "Eleanor was very specific. She said you would come when you were ready, or when you discovered what your parents are truly capable of." His gaze was direct, unblinking. "I'm guessing it's the latter?" I placed the sealed envelope on his desk. "I found this in the attic, along with my grandmother's journals." Mr. Harrison's eyebrows rose slightly. "I'm impressed. Your parents have kept that attic locked since the day after the funeral. They underestimated how much I wanted answers." A hint of approval crossed his face. "Eleanor said they would. She also said it would be their downfall." He picked up the envelope, examining the wax seal. "This contains the vault codes and access instructions. I assume you've read the letter that accompanied it?" I nodded. "A Dega, worth over $3 million. 3.2 at last appraisal," he confirmed. "Though in today's market, possibly more." "And my grandmother left it to me? Specifically to me?" Mr. Harrison opened a drawer and removed a thick folder. "Your grandmother revised her will 6 times in the last decade of her life. Each time she became more specific about her intentions for you." He slid a document across the desk. "This is the final version, executed 3 months before she passed. The painting is explicitly bequeathed to you, along with specific instructions that neither your parents nor your brother are to have any claim on it whatsoever." I skimmed the legal language, pausing at a paragraph near the end. "What's this? About a test?" "Ah." Mr. Harrison removed his glasses, polishing them with a handkerchief. "Eleanor set up what we call a reveal mechanism. She left you the savings account, $50,000, as a way to gauge your parents' respect for her wishes. If they honored the bequest, allowing you full control of those funds, they would receive a significant financial gift on the 5th anniversary of her death. And if they didn't, then nothing. The contingent gift would revert to you as well." He replaced his glasses. "Your grandmother was something of a chess player, Emma. She saw several moves ahead." "She knew they would take my money," I said, realization dawning. "She expected it." "She hoped they wouldn't," he corrected gently. "But she planned for the possibility. Eleanor understood your parents' priorities all too well." "So what happens now? Do I just take the painting?" Mr. Harrison slid another document across the desk. "First, you sign this, acknowledging receipt of your inheritance. Then we go to the bank vault, where I will witness your acquisition of the artwork and its provenance papers. After that, the painting is yours to do with as you see fit." My hand hovered over the document. "My parents will contest this." "They'll try," he agreed, "but they won't succeed. Eleanor made certain of that. The will has been structured to withstand any challenge, and there are additional safeguards." "What kind of safeguards?" Mr. Harrison's expression remained neutral, but his eyes held a glint of something almost mischievous. "Let's just say your grandmother was well aware of certain financial irregularities your father engaged in years ago, irregularities that would be highly problematic if they came to light. She documented everything and included it in a sealed file that would only be opened if your inheritance was contested." I stared at him, stunned. "Blackmail?" "Insurance," he corrected smoothly. Eleanor preferred to think of it as insurance. An hour later, I stood in the climate-controlled vault beneath Bayfield National Bank, holding a small, exquisite pastel drawing of a ballerina tying her shoe. The colors were soft but vibrant, the lines capturing movement with incredible delicacy. Even to my trained eye, it was clearly the work of a master. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "And authentic," Mr. Harrison said. handing me a folder containing certificates of provenance, authentication papers, and insurance documentation. Eleanor purchased it in Paris in 1962 from a private collector. It's been out of public circulation since then, which adds to its value. I carefully returned the Degas to its protective case. What am I supposed to do with it? I can't exactly hang it in my apartment. That's entirely up to you. You could sell it at auction. Sotheby's would be delighted to handle it. You could loan it to a museum. Or you could keep it in secure storage and use it as collateral for a business loan. He smiled slightly. Eleanor mentioned you wanted to open an art gallery? The reminder of my dream, so close now to becoming reality, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. I blinked them back, unwilling to break down in front of this composed, dignified man who had helped my grandmother outmaneuver my family. Thank you, Mr. Harrison, for everything. He inclined his head. I'm merely executing Eleanor's wishes, as was my duty and my privilege. She was an extraordinary woman who saw your potential clearly. He hesitated, then added, If I may offer one piece of advice? I nodded. Be strategic about how you reveal this to your parents. Eleanor didn't create this situation for revenge, but for your liberation. I thought about the family dinner waiting for me that evening, about my brother's destination wedding, funded with my stolen inheritance, about years of being overlooked, undervalued, forgotten. I understand, I said, but a plan was already forming in my mind. I left the bank with the Degas secured in a locked case and a new sense of power humming through my veins. I wasn't the overlooked Mitchell daughter anymore. I was my grandmother's heir in every sense, not just financially, but spiritually. She had trusted me with her treasure and her truth. Before heading to my parents' house, I made one stop at my apartment to change clothes. I shed my usual casual attire for a crisp white blouse and tailored black pants that I normally saved for job interviews. I swept my hair into a neat bun and applied makeup with deliberate care. Tonight was a performance, and I needed to look the part. At precisely 7 o'clock, I pulled into the driveway of the Mitchell family home, the secure case containing the Degas locked in my trunk. I wouldn't be bringing it inside, that would be too risky, but its existence gave me a confidence I'd never possessed in this house before. My mother answered the door, her smile tight. Emma, you're right on time. Your father's in the dining room. We've ordered from Bellini's. As if expensive takeout could smooth over what they'd done, I followed her through the familiar hallway, noticing for the first time how many photographs lined the walls. Ryan in his football uniform, Ryan at graduation, Ryan with Olivia. My presence in the family visual history was minimal at best. My father stood as I entered, his manner cautious. Emma, good to see you being reasonable about this discussion. I took my usual seat at the table, the one furthest from my father's. Position at the head, old habits. My mother busied herself serving pasta from elegant takeout containers while my father poured wine. We've been thinking about your situation, he began, his tone measured as if addressing a difficult client. And we're prepared to offer a compromise. A compromise, I repeated, accepting the wine but not drinking it. Yes. He glanced at my mother for support. While we maintain that using your inheritance for Ryan's wedding is the best use of family resources, we recognize that you feel overlooked. My mother jumped in. We're prepared to give you $5,000 after the wedding is over, to help with your gallery idea. She said, gallery idea, the way one might say, plan to become an astronaut, to a 5-year-old. 5,000, I echoed, out of 47,000. It's a significant percentage, my father insisted, and frankly, more than enough for a business that has little chance of success in a town this size. I took a measured sip of wine, using the moment to compose myself. And what would you say if I told you I no longer need that money? My parents exchanged glances. That's very mature of you, Emma, my mother said cautiously. I'm glad you're seeing the bigger picture. Oh, I am. For the first time, actually. I set down my glass. I visited Mr. Harrison today, Grandma Eleanor's attorney. The color drained from my father's face. Why would you do that? I had questions about my inheritance, the full inheritance, not just the account you emptied. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. What are you talking about? You received your full inheritance. No, I said calmly. I received the public inheritance, the one Grandma knew you'd try to control. It turns out she left me something else as well, something she kept from both of you. That's absurd, my father snapped, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Eleanor's will was clear. The house to us, the cars to Ryan, and the savings account to you. There was nothing else. I smiled, the same measured smile my grandmother used to give when she held a winning hand at bridge. The Degas ballerina, the one she bought in Paris. In 1962, the one worth $3.2 million. The silence that followed was absolute. My father froze, wine glass halfway to his lips. My mother's face contorted in disbelief. You're lying, she finally managed. There is no Degas. Eleanor sold all her valuable art years ago. That's what she wanted you to think. But she kept one piece back, for me, along with documentation of Dad's financial irregularities from the 80s that would be made public if you contest the will. My father set down his glass with a sharp click. What exactly are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Grandma left me a painting worth over $3 million. I have it now, along with all the authentication, papers, and a will that explicitly excludes both of you from any claim to it. This is ridiculous, my father blustered, but his voice had lost its authority. Harrison wouldn't keep something like that from us. He was following Grandma's explicit instructions. She created a test, the savings account. If you respected her wishes and let me use that money as she intended, you would have received a significant gift on the 5th anniversary of her death. My mother's hand flew to her throat. What gift? It doesn't matter now. You failed the... I leaned forward. You took money meant for my future to fund Ryan's extravagant wedding. Money that meant something to me, not because of the amount, but because Grandma believed in my dreams when no one else did. We were trying to protect you, my mother insisted. That gallery would have failed. You would have lost everything. That wasn't your decision to make, and now you've lost far more than you took from me. My father's expression hardened. If you think you can come in here and threaten us, I'm not threatening anything. I'm informing you of the consequences of your actions. Consequences Grandma foresaw years ago. So what now? My mother asked, her voice small. You have your millions and we get nothing? Is that your revenge? I stood, smoothing my pants. This isn't about revenge. It's about recognition. I walked to the mantel, where a photo of Ryan and Olivia took center stage. I've spent my entire life being the afterthought in this family, the one whose dreams weren't worth investing in, the one who wasn't even worth a Christmas present. That's not fair, my mother protested weakly. Isn't it? You took my inheritance to fund Ryan's wedding without even discussing it with me first. You planned to offer me a fraction of my own money as if it were a generous gesture. My father stood abruptly. What do you want, Emma? If this is some kind of negotiation? It's not a negotiation. It's a declaration. I'm done being the family ghost. I'm done pretending that being forgotten doesn't hurt. And I'm done waiting for any of you to see my value. I moved toward the door, then paused. The wedding is safe, by the way. I'm not cruel enough to cancel Ryan's big day, but I won't be attending. And after tomorrow, I won't be available for family events, emergency loans, or tech support. I'm starting my gallery, Eleanor's, named after the only person in this family who ever truly saw me. "You're overreacting," my mother said, rising to follow me. "We can work this out." I turned back one last time. "There's nothing to work out. You made your choice when you emptied that account, and I've made mine." "So that's it?" My father's voice had lost its bluster, leaving only a hollow echo. "You're cutting us off because of money?" "No," I said softly. "I'm cutting you off because you cut me off long ago. The only difference is that now I have the means to build a life where I'm valued." I left without waiting for their response, walking out of the house with a steadiness I'd never felt before. The spring air felt different somehow, cleaner, fresher, full of possibility. My phone began buzzing almost immediately. First my mother, then my father, then even Ryan, presumably alerted to the situation. I silenced it and drove to Grace's house, where I'd arranged to spend the night. She was waiting on her porch swing, 2 glasses of bourbon ready on the small table beside her. One look at my face told her everything. "You found it," she said. Not a question. A Degas worth over $3 million. I sank onto the swing beside her. "She left it for me." Along with evidence of my father's past financial misdeeds, Grace handed me a bourbon. "Eleanor always played the long game, even when we were young." "Did you know about the painting?" "I knew she had something valuable set aside for you. She never revealed exactly what it was, just that it would give you the freedom she always wanted you to have." She clinked her glass against mine. "To Eleanor, still fighting for her granddaughter from beyond the grave." We sat in comfortable silence, watching lightning bugs begin to flicker in Grace's overgrown garden. Eventually, I asked the question that had been nagging at me. Was she right to do it this way? To set up this whole elaborate scheme instead of just confronting my parents while she was alive? Grace considered this, rocking gently. "Eleanor, tried confrontation many times over the years. Your parents didn't listen then, and they wouldn't have listened about this. They would have found a way to control the situation, to make the painting family property, or convince you to sell it, and invest the proceeds in something they deemed appropriate." "Like Ryan's wedding," I said wryly. "Exactly. Eleanor knew the only way to truly set you free was to give you power they couldn't touch or manipulate." She patted my hand. "It wasn't about punishing them, Emma. It was about liberating you." Mr. Harrison said something similar. "Smart man." Grace refilled our glasses. "So what happens now? I assume you've delivered the news to Robert and Diane?" "I told them everything. They didn't take it well." "I can imagine." She snorted. "Robert always did think he was the smartest person in any room. Your grandmother took great pleasure in proving otherwise." "They'll try to get to me through Ryan," I said, realizing it as I spoke. "He'll be furious when he finds out about the painting." "Let him be furious," Grace said simply. "You don't owe him an explanation or an apology." "I told them I wouldn't be attending the wedding." Grace smiled. "Good for you. Why celebrate a union funded by your stolen dreams?" My phone buzzed. Again, Ryan for the 3rd time. I silenced it once more. "They'll keep calling," Grace observed, "and then they'll show up at your apartment. You should consider staying here for a few days until the initial storm passes." "I can't hide forever." "Not hiding, strategizing. Give yourself time to process this, to plan your next steps without their interference." She was right, of course. If I returned to my apartment tonight, I'd likely find one or all of them waiting, ready to pressure, guilt, or manipulate me into softening my stance. "I need to secure the painting," I said. "It's still in my car." "Bring it in. I have a safe. In my office. It's not as sophisticated as a bank vault, but it's better than leaving it unprotected." The next few days passed in a strange haze of planning and dodging family calls. Grace's cozy guest room became my sanctuary as I researched commercial real estate in the Arts District, contacted galleries about partnering opportunities, and began drafting a business plan for Eleanor's gallery. True to Grace's prediction, my family escalated their attempts to reach me. When calling didn't work, they began showing up at my apartment. My neighbor texted updates about their visits. Then at Tidal Grounds Cafe, Ryan even tried to reach me through mutual friends, claiming there was a family emergency that required my immediate attention. On the third day, I received an email from Mr. Harrison. Emma, your father has contacted me regarding the Dega. As expected, he is threatening legal action. I have reminded him of the consequences should he proceed. He has retreated for now, but will likely try again through different channels. I recommend we move forward with securing the painting in a professional art storage facility as soon as possible. I can make arrangements if you wish. T. Harrison. I forwarded the email to Grace, who was at the cafe. Time to act, she texted back. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., I'll drive you. That evening, as we sat in her garden sharing a simple dinner of grilled vegetables and fish, Grace asked the question I'd been avoiding. Have you decided what to do with the painting? Will you sell it? I set down my fork, considering. Part of me wants to. It would fund the gallery and then some. But it was Eleanor's, and now it's yours. Exactly. It feels wrong to let it go so quickly. Grace nodded. You don't have to decide right away. The painting can stay in secure storage while you think about it. I was thinking about using it as collateral for a business loan, I said. That way I could keep the painting but still access enough capital to start the gallery. A good compromise. Eleanor would approve. A text alert pinged on my phone. My neighbor again. Your brother is at your apartment again. He's been sitting in his car for an hour. He looked really angry. I showed Grace the message. Ryan's the wild card in all this, she said thoughtfully. Your parents might eventually accept defeat, especially with your father's past hanging over his head. But Ryan has never been told no in his entire life, I finished. And he sees the wedding as his due. You should contact him directly, Grace advised. Otherwise, this will fester and potentially become dangerous. She was right. My brother's temper was legendary, carefully controlled in professional settings, but explosive when he felt wronged. And in his mind, I had definitely wronged him. I drafted a text. Ryan, I understand you're upset. I'm willing to talk, but not at my apartment and not alone. If you want to meet, suggest a public place for tomorrow afternoon. His response came almost immediately. Lighthouse Cafe, 2 p.m. Come alone or don't bother. Grace read the message over my shoulder. The lighthouse is public enough, but I'll be sitting at a nearby table regardless. You don't have to do that. I promised Eleanor I'd look out for you if things got ugly. This qualifies. The next morning, we drove to Bayfield National Bank, where Mr. Harrison met us with paperwork for a secure art storage facility in Portland. The Dega would be transported under guard and insurance, accessible only to me with proper identification. Your father called again this morning, Mr. Harrison informed me as we waited for the paperwork to be processed. He's suggested a family meeting to resolve the situation amicably. There's nothing to resolve, I said. The painting is mine, legally and morally. I conveyed as much. He then implied that your mental state might be questioned if this went to court. I stiffened. My mental state? A desperate tactic, Mr. Harrison said dismissively. But it shows they're not ready to concede. What should I do? Nothing, for now. Let them expend their energy on useless threats. Once they realize you won't be intimidated, they'll either accept reality or make a critical error that strengthens your position further. After the painting was secured for transport, Grace and I stopped at a small cafe for lunch. I'd barely touched my sandwich when my phone rang, my mother's number. On impulse, I answered. Emma? Her voice was unnaturally bright. Where have you been? We've been so worried. I'm fine, Mom. Just taking some time to process everything. Well, that's understandable, of course. It was quite a shock for all of us. She paused, then continued in a carefully casual tone. Your father and I have been talking, and we think we may have overreacted at dinner the other night. Really? Yes, absolutely. We're so proud of your independence, and this gallery idea, well, perhaps it has more merit than we initially thought. I caught Grace's eye across the table. She raised an eyebrow, clearly hearing every word. That's quite a change of heart, I said neutrally. Well, families evolve, don't they? Listen, why don't you come to dinner tonight? Just the four of us. You, me, your father, and Ryan. We can discuss how to move forward as a family. The invitation was so transparent it was almost laughable. They wanted to present a united front, to pressure me in person where my defenses might be weakest. I can't tonight. I have plans. Tomorrow, then? Mom, I'm not coming to dinner. Not tomorrow, not next week. I meant what I said about needing space from the family. Her tone instantly cooled. This isn't like you, Emma. You've always been the reasonable one. Maybe that's the problem. I've been reasonable while everyone else took advantage. Is that what you think? That we've taken advantage of you? Her voice rose slightly. After everything we've done for you? Such as? The question hung in the air between us. My mother sputtered. We raised you, supported you. You provided the minimum required by law, then forgot I existed unless you needed something. Let's not rewrite history. Grace gave me a thumbs up from across the table. I don't recognize you anymore, my mother said coldly. This painting has changed you. No, Mom. You're just seeing me clearly for the first time. I need to go now. I ended the call before she could respond. Grace reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Well done, she said. Clear boundaries. Eleanor would be proud. At 2:00, we arrived at Lighthouse Cafe. Ryan's silver Audi was already in the parking lot. As agreed, Grace took a table near the window while I approached my brother, who sat rigidly in a corner booth, already nursing what looked like a whiskey. His eyes, so like my father's, tracked me as I slid into the seat across from him. He didn't speak until I'd settled. You've caused quite a stir, he finally said, voice deceptively calm. That wasn't my intention. Wasn't it? He swirled, the amber liquid in his glass. You drop a bombshell about a multi-million-dollar painting, refuse to answer calls, then announce you're not coming to my wedding. Seems designed for maximum impact. I found out you all spent my inheritance on your wedding. I think my reaction was pretty restrained. A muscle twitched in his jaw. That money was meant for the family. No, it wasn't. Grandma left it specifically to me for my gallery. Your gallery. He almost sneered the words. Your little hobby project that would have folded in a year. You don't know that. No one gave me the chance to try. Ryan leaned forward. What I know is that my fiancé's family is now questioning our financial stability. The Parkers have resources, connections. This marriage benefits everyone. Everyone except me, apparently. Don't be so selfish. This is bigger than your hurt feelings. I stared at him, truly seeing him for the first time. That's always been the family motto, hasn't it? Emma's feelings don't matter because something bigger is at stake. Well, guess what? They matter. To me. And apparently they mattered to Grandma too. Ryan's facade cracked slightly. Is that what this is about? Attention? You're jeopardizing my future because you felt left out? I'm protecting what's mine. The painting is legally mine, no matter how much you all wish it weren't. And the wedding money? Was also mine. But I told Mom and Dad I wouldn't interfere with the wedding. How generous, he said bitterly. You'll let my wedding proceed while you sit on millions. I sighed. What do you want from me, Ryan? An apology? For what? Having an inheritance you didn't know about? Or is it that your angry grandma chose me for once instead of you? His hand tightened around his glass. You have no idea what this engagement means. The Parkers expect certain things. If we scale back now, it looks like we can't afford what we promised. That sounds like a personal problem. His eyes flashed. You could fix this. Sell the painting, split it with the family, everyone wins. Except me. Again. You'd still have nearly $1 million. And you'd have even more for doing nothing but being born first. Ryan slammed his hand on the table, causing nearby diners to look over. I was aware of Grace straightening in her seat, ready to intervene. You've changed, he said, voice low and dangerous. The old Emma would have helped her family. The old Emma was a doormat who let everyone walk all over her. I prefer the new version. He stared at me with naked hostility. Dad says we can contest the will, prove Grandma wasn't of sound mind. Mr. Harrison has already addressed that possibility with Dad. It wouldn't end well for any of you. Ryan's expression darkened further. So that's it? You're choosing money over family? No. I met his gaze steadily. I'm choosing myself over people who never chose me. I stood to leave. Ryan's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. We're not done here. Grace was immediately on her feet, moving toward us. I kept my voice even. Let go of me, Ryan. You're making a scene. His fingers tightened briefly, then released. This isn't over, he hissed. Yes, it is. I stepped back. Enjoy your wedding. I hope it's everything you and Olivia dreamed. But don't contact me again unless you're ready to apologize for a lifetime of treating me like I don't matter. Grace materialized at my side, her presence a shield. Everything. Okay here? Ryan's eyes flicked to her, then back to me. Fine. Emma was just leaving. We walked out together, my heart pounding, but my resolve stronger than ever. In the parking lot, Grace checked my wrist where Ryan had grabbed me. He's always had a temper, I said, trying to sound casual. And now he knows he can't intimidate you. She unlocked her car. That meeting was necessary, but I don't think it's the end of their efforts. She was right. That night, Olivia sent a long, emotional email about how I was ruining the most important day of her life, followed by a series of texts from various extended family members, all urging me to make peace and do the right thing. None of them asked how I was feeling or acknowledged what had been taken from me. None of them recognized that I had dreams too. I forwarded it all to Mr. Harrison, who responded with typical efficiency. Standard pressure tactics. Ignore them. The painting is now safely in storage, and your financial plans are proceeding without their input. They will eventually accept the new reality or exhaust themselves fighting it. Either way, you win. As I prepared for bed in Grace's guest room, my phone chimed with one last message from my father. This family built everything you have. Remember that before you tear it all down. I stared at the words, feeling not anger but a strange sense of clarity. This family had given me pain, invisibility, and doubt. My grandmother had given me opportunity, recognition, and freedom. The difference couldn't have been clearer. I typed back a single line. I'm not tearing anything down. I'm building something new. Then I silenced my phone, ready for whatever came next. The next week unfolded with unexpected speed. While my family continued their campaign of guilt and pressure, I focused on building my new life with the same methodical precision my grandmother had used to protect my inheritance. My first order of business was finding a permanent place to stay. As much as I appreciated Grace's hospitality, I couldn't impose on her indefinitely. The morning after my confrontation with Ryan, I contacted a realtor recommended by Mr. Harrison and explained my situation. I need a place where my family can't easily find me, I told her. Something secure, private, and ready to move into immediately. Janice Weber was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who nodded without judgment. I know exactly what you need. How do you feel about the Harbor District? The Harbor District was on the opposite side of Bayfield from my family's neighborhood, an area that had been industrial for decades, but was now transforming into a trendy artistic enclave. My parents would never voluntarily venture there, considering it beneath their social standing. It sounds perfect, I said. That afternoon, Janice showed me a converted warehouse loft with exposed brick walls, massive windows overlooking the harbor, and a secure entrance that required both a key card and a code. The previous owner had been an architect who'd designed the space with both aesthetics and privacy in mind. The building has only 6 units, Janice explained as we toured the spacious main room. All owners, no renters. The neighbors are professionals who value their privacy. A novelist, a retired judge, a tech entrepreneur who works remotely. I ran my hand along the smooth concrete countertop of the kitchen island. It's beautiful, but I can't afford this. Not yet, anyway. Janice smiled. Actually, you might be surprised. The owner is relocating overseas for work and needs to sell quickly. The price is well below market value. She handed me a listing sheet, and I blinked at the number. With a modest portion of my eventual gallery funding, I could buy this outright. No mortgage, no financial trail for my family to follow. I'll take it, I said, a decision that would have terrified the old Emma. But the woman holding a Degas in secure storage didn't hesitate. While the purchase paperwork processed, I returned to my apartment only once, strategically timed when I knew my family would be at a pre-wedding event, a taste testing at the country club that my mother had mentioned in one of her numerous voicemails. With Grace standing guard outside, I quickly packed my essential belongings, art supplies, and cherished books. Everything else could be replaced. As I locked the apartment door for the final time, a strange lightness filled me. I was leaving. Behind more than furniture, I was shedding the version of myself that had existed solely to please others. Next came the practical logistics of disappearing from my family's radar. I changed my phone number, created a new email address, and set up mail forwarding to a P.O. box. I took a leave of absence from Tidal Grounds with Grace's blessing. Take all the time you need, she told me. Your job will be here if you want it, though I suspect you're moving on to bigger things. Her words proved prophetic. 2 days after moving into my loft, I found myself sitting across from Eliza Chen, the owner of Portside Gallery, one of the most respected art spaces in the region. Mr. Harrison had made the introduction, mentioning only that I was a serious collector interested in opening my own gallery. Eliza studied me with keen eyes. Theodore speaks very highly of you, which is rare enough to pique my interest. He mentioned you have some experience in the art world? I have an art degree with a focus on curation and evaluation, I explained. And I've worked adjacent to the industry for several years. It sounded more impressive than I make lattes and occasionally sell my paintings at local craft fairs. And now you're looking to open your own space. Yes, I'm calling it Eleanor's. A smile touched her lips. After someone special, I presume? My grandmother. She made it possible. Eliza nodded, seeming to understand more than I'd explicitly stated. The gallery business isn't for the faint of heart, especially in a town this size. What's your vision for Eleanor's? I'd been preparing for this question my entire adult life. A space that bridges the gap between established and emerging artists. Regional focus, but with an eye toward broader relevance. I want to create conversations between works that might not traditionally be shown together, highlighting connections across styles and periods. Ambitious, she commented, though I couldn't tell if she was impressed or skeptical. I also want to include an educational component, I continued. Workshops, classes, talks. making art accessible to people who might feel intimidated by traditional gallery spaces. Eliza leaned back in her chair, observing me thoughtfully. You know, I've been in this business for 25 years. I've seen trust fund kids open vanity galleries that close within months. I've seen passionate artists who understand everything about creation, but nothing about commerce. What makes you different? I met her gaze steadily. I have the financial backing to do this right, the education to understand the art, and something to prove, to myself more than anyone else. A hint of approval crossed her face. Honest. I appreciate that. She reached for a folder on her desk. As it happens, I've been considering a second location. The Harbor District is developing a cultural cache that would complement my current gallery without cannibalizing its client base. My heart quickened. You're looking to expand? I was, but commercial real estate in that area has become prohibitively expensive, and finding the right manager would be challenging. She slid the folder toward me. However, I might be interested in a different arrangement. A mentorship and potential partnership. I opened the folder to find detailed projections, market analyses, and a proposed business structure. You've clearly given this a lot of thought. I don't do anything without thorough research. My proposal is this. You provide the space and initial capital. I provide the expertise and connections. We start with a 6-month mentorship where you learn the business from the inside out, working at Portside while we develop Eleanor's. At the end of that period, if we're both satisfied, we form a partnership for the new gallery. It was more than I could have hoped for. Not just a space of my own, but guidance from someone who had succeeded in a notoriously difficult industry. Why would you take a chance on someone unproven? I asked. Eliza's expression softened slightly. Because 26 years ago, someone took a chance on me. And because Theodore Harrison doesn't make recommendations lightly, there's clearly a story here that neither of you is sharing fully, but I trust his judgment. We spent the next 2 hours discussing specifics, profit sharing, operational decisions, timeline. By the time I left Portside Gallery, I had not just a plan, but a partner with the expertise to make Eleanor's a reality. That evening, sitting on the floor of my still empty loft, furniture would arrive the following week, I felt a surge of gratitude for my grandmother's foresight. She had given me not just financial freedom, but the confidence to pursue connection and collaboration rather than isolation. I called Grace to share the news, and she insisted on bringing dinner to celebrate. I knew Eliza back when she first started, Grace told me as we sat cross-legged on the floor, sharing Thai food from containers. She has impeccable taste and an even better business sense. She doesn't suffer fools, so if she's offering a partnership, she sees something special in you. Or she sees dollar signs from my Degas, I said, only half joking. Grace shook her head. Eliza Chen has her own money. What she values is integrity and vision. Besides, she doesn't know about the painting, does she? No, just that I have financial backing. Mr. Harrison was discreet. As always, Grace refilled our wine glasses. Speaking of discretion, have you heard anything more from the family? I sighed. Mom left 3 voicemails yesterday about how I'm breaking her heart by missing Ryan's wedding. Dad sent an email suggesting we discuss terms, like this is a hostage negotiation. And Ryan's fiancé had someone from the bridal party reach out to ask if my tantrum is over yet. Charming. The wedding is this weekend. Once they're off in Santorini, maybe things will quiet down. Grace looked skeptical. They're not going to give up easily, Emma, especially once they realize you've moved and changed your number. What more can they do? The painting is secure, the gallery plan is in motion, and I'm literally off their radar. People like your parents don't like losing control. Just be prepared. Her warning proved accurate sooner than either of us expected. The next morning, I arrived at Portside Gallery for my first day of mentorship to find Eliza in an intense phone conversation. Her expression stormy. "I understand your concern, Mrs. Mitchell, but as I've explained, I have no knowledge of your daughter's personal finances or investments," she was saying, her tone professionally frosty. My stomach dropped. Somehow, my mother had discovered my connection to Eliza. "I'm sure Emma is perfectly capable of making her own business decisions," Eliza continued. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have appointments waiting." She hung up and turned to me, one eyebrow raised. "Your mother is quite persistent. Apparently, she's concerned that I might be taking advantage of your naivety. She mentioned something about your recent emotional distress and questionable judgment." Heat rushed to my face. "I'm so sorry, Eliza. I have no idea how she found out about our arrangement." "Bayfield is a small town," Eliza said simply. "I mentioned to an acquaintance that I was mentoring Eleanor Mitchell's granddaughter. Word travels." "What else did she say?" "That you've recently come into money that you're not equipped to manage, that your family is concerned about your mental well-being." Her piercing gaze assessed me. "Is there something I should know, Emma?" I hesitated, then decided that partial honesty was necessary. "My grandmother left me an inheritance that my parents tried to appropriate for my brother's wedding. When I discovered what they'd done, I confronted them. Now they're trying to regain control by any means necessary, including suggesting I'm mentally unstable." Eliza's expression remained neutral. "And the inheritance is legally mine, with all documentation in order and verified by Mr. Harrison. My parents are upset because they weren't aware of its full extent until recently." She nodded slowly. "I see. Well, your family dynamics are none of my business, provided they don't interfere with ours. I hope you understand that I can't have dramatic scenes in my gallery." "Of course not. I'll make sure they understand that this is a professional space." "See that you do." She handed me a gallery catalog. "Now, let's begin with our current exhibition. I want you to familiarize yourself with each artist's work before clients arrive." The matter-of-fact way she moved past my family drama was refreshing. Unlike everyone else in Bayfield, Eliza Chen wasn't interested in gossip or taking sides. She cared about art, business, and maintaining her gallery's reputation. It was precisely the environment I needed. The rest of the day passed in a blur of learning: inventory systems, client records, shipping procedures. By closing time, my head was swimming with information, but I felt more energized than I had in years. As Eliza locked up, she paused. "Your mother called twice more while you were with clients. I've instructed my assistant not to put her through again. I suggest you address the situation directly before it escalates further." I nodded, dreading the conversation but knowing she was right. "I'll handle it." Instead of returning to my loft, I drove to Grace's house. If I was going to confront my family, I wanted a safe place to retreat afterward. Grace took one look at my face as I walked in and said, "What happened?" "They found out about Eliza. Mom's been calling the gallery, telling her I'm emotionally disturbed and making poor financial decisions." Not surprising, but still low. She gestured for me to sit. "Tea or something stronger?" "Stronger, definitely." I sank onto her couch. "I need to talk to them directly. Set boundaries. Make it clear that interfering with my professional relationships crosses a line." Grace returned with 2 tumblers of bourbon. "What's your plan?" "I thought I'd go to the house tomorrow. Get it over with before they leave for the wedding." She considered this, then shook her head. "Too risky. They'd have home field advantage. You'd be walking into an emotional ambush with all 3 of them present." She was right. At their house, they could control the environment, present a united front, and potentially prevent me from leaving if things got heated. "What do you suggest?" "Neutral territory. Public enough that they have to behave, private enough for a real conversation. And meet with your mother alone first. She's the emotional center of the family, and frankly, more reasonable than your father or brother. I took a long sip of bourbon, the warmth spreading through my chest. The botanical gardens. Mom goes there to sketch sometimes. It's usually quiet on weekday mornings. Perfect. Text her now, just your mother. Be direct. But not confrontational. I composed a message. Mom, we need to talk about professional boundaries. I'll be at the Botanical Gardens tomorrow at 10 a.m. East Pavilion. Come alone if you want to resolve this situation. The response came within minutes. Thank goodness. We've been so worried. Of course I'll be there. We just want what's best for you, Emma. I showed Grace the text, and she rolled her eyes. Classic manipulation. Notice how she doesn't acknowledge any wrongdoing or respond to the come alone request? Be prepared for your father or Ryan to show up as well. What do I do if they all come? You leave. Make it clear that your boundaries are non-negotiable. That night, I slept fitfully, rehearsing what I would say, anticipating their counter-arguments. By morning, I felt hollowed out but resolved. This confrontation was necessary, not to change their minds, but to establish that I would no longer allow their behavior to go unchallenged. The botanical gardens were peaceful at 10 a.m., dew still clinging to the carefully tended flowers. I chose a bench in the East Pavilion, positioned so I could see anyone approaching from the main path. At precisely 10:05, my mother appeared, alone to my surprise. She wore her gardening club outfit, linen pants, a tasteful blouse, and a wide-brimmed hat that shaded her face. As she drew closer, I noticed she looked tired, the lines around her mouth deeper than I remembered. Emma, she said, stopping a few feet away as if uncertain of her welcome. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I didn't agree to anything, Mom. I set the meeting because you're interfering in my professional life, and it needs to stop. She flinched slightly at my directness but recovered quickly, taking a seat beside me. We're worried about you, sweetheart. You've been making impulsive decisions, cutting off family, associating with people who might take advantage of your situation. You mean my legally inherited wealth that you tried to steal? That's unfair, she protested. We were managing family resources for everyone's benefit. The savings account wasn't a family resource. It was my inheritance, specifically designated for my gallery. And now you're trying to sabotage my business relationship with Eliza Chen because you can't control it. My mother removed her hat, fidgeting with the brim. We just don't want you to be taken advantage of. You've never handled this kind of money before. I'm 28 years old, Mom. I have a degree in business and art. I'm fully capable of managing my own affairs. I turned to face her directly. And let's be honest, this isn't about protecting me. It's about controlling me. A flash of something, recognition perhaps, crossed her face before she looked away. You've always been so independent. Even as a child, you never wanted help. I wanted support. There's a difference. She was silent for a moment, staring at the rose garden beyond the pavilion. Your father is meeting with lawyers today about contesting the will. That would be a mistake. Grandma left safeguards against exactly that scenario. I kept my voice steady. Documents about Dad's financial irregularities in the 80s. My mother's head snapped toward me, alarm evident in her expression. What are you talking about? Grandma knew Dad might try to challenge her wishes. She kept detailed records as insurance. If he pursues this, those records become public. The color drained from her face. You're bluffing. I'm not. Mr. Harrison has confirmed everything. If Dad contests the will, he risks his reputation and possibly legal consequences. She stood abruptly, pacing the small pavilion. You would do that to your own father? To your family? I'm not doing anything, Mom. I'm simply inheriting what Grandma legally left me and using it as she intended. Dad is the one threatening legal action. Because you're being unreasonable. This painting, if it even exists, should benefit the entire family, not just you. Why? I asked simply. Why should my inheritance go to people who have consistently dismissed my dreams and taken what was mine without asking? Why does Ryan deserve a luxury wedding funded by my money, but I don't deserve to open my gallery with my own inheritance? She stopped pacing, her expression conflicted. Ryan is establishing connections that will benefit everyone. His position with the Parkers will benefit him and you and Dad, not me. I've never been included in the family success plan, Mom. I've been the afterthought, the one you call when the Wi-Fi goes down or someone needs a ride from the airport, and I accepted that role because I thought that's all I deserved. Tears welled in her eyes. Whether from genuine emotion or tactical manipulation, I couldn't tell. That's not true, Emma. We love you. We've always wanted the best for you. The best as you define it, not as I do. I stood, gathering my resolve. I'm going to say this once, clearly. I am establishing professional and personal boundaries. You will not contact Eliza Chen or anyone else associated with my gallery, ever again. You will not spread rumors about my mental health or financial competence. You will not show up at my workplace or new residence. New residence? You've moved? Yes, and I've changed my phone number and email. If you need to contact me, you can do so through Mr. Harrison until I decide if direct communication is healthy for me. She reached for my arm, her fingers cold against my skin. Emma, please, don't do this. We're your family. And that should have meant something when you were emptying my bank account. It should have meant something all the years you forgot my birthday or dismissed my career goals. I gently removed her hand. Being family isn't just biological, Mom. It's behavioral. And your behavior has shown me exactly how much, or how little, I matter to you all. So this is revenge? For a lifetime of perceived slights? No. This is self-preservation. This is me choosing a life where I'm valued, not just tolerated. A familiar voice called from the garden path. There you are, Diane. Sorry I'm late. My father strode toward us, briefcase in hand, clearly dressed for confrontation in his courtroom suit. My mother looked away guiltily. You promised to come alone, I said quietly. He insisted, Emma. He has information you need to hear. I shouldered my bag. No, he doesn't. And you've just demonstrated exactly why I can't trust you. I turned to leave as my father reached the pavilion. Emma Mitchell, don't you dare walk away from me, he commanded in his courtroom voice. We are resolving this situation today. I paused, looking back at him. There's nothing to resolve, Dad. The painting is mine. The gallery will open. And your legal threats are empty, as Mr. Harrison has no doubt explained. His face flushed with anger. Harrison is exercising undue influence over you. He's manipulating you against your family for his own purposes. What purposes would those be? He's hardly benefiting from my inheritance. He resented your grandmother for not choosing his firm to manage all her assets. This is his revenge. The absurdity of the claim almost made me laugh. Mr. Harrison was Grandma's friend for 40 years. And even if what you're saying were true, it doesn't change the legal reality. The painting is mine. My father took a step closer, lowering his voice. Emma, be reasonable. We can come to an arrangement that benefits everyone. Your mother and I are prepared to acknowledge your independence. Support your gallery idea within reason. All we ask is that the painting be sold and the proceeds distributed fairly among family members. Fairly, I repeated. Like how my savings account was fairly emptied for Ryan's wedding. That was different. This is millions of dollars, which makes it more acceptable to take, not less. His professional composure slipped, revealing the entitlement beneath. You didn't earn that painting. You don't deserve it more than the rest of us. And there it was, the core belief that had shaped my entire childhood. In their eyes, I would never deserve the same consideration, the same support, the same love as Ryan. Goodbye, Dad. Mom, enjoy the wedding. I walked away, their protests fading behind me. Grace was waiting in her car outside the gardens, just as we'd arranged. How did it go? She asked as I slid into the passenger seat. About as expected. Dad showed up despite my request that Mom come alone. They want me to sell the painting and split the money with the family. Of course they do. She pulled away from the curb. What did you tell them? That I've set boundaries they need to respect. That the painting is mine legally and morally. That Dad should drop any plans to contest the will. Grace nodded approvingly. And did you tell them about your new address? Only that I've moved, not where. They'll find out eventually, but hopefully not before I'm settled and secure. Good. Baby steps. She patted my hand. You did well, Emma. Standing up to family is the hardest thing, especially when they've conditioned you to doubt yourself. As we drove away from the botanical gardens, I felt a weight lifting, not completely gone, but lighter. I had faced them on my terms, stated my boundaries clearly, and walked away intact. It wasn't a victory so much as a declaration of independence. The Mitchell family saga was far from over. I knew they wouldn't give up easily, especially once they realized how serious I was about cutting ties. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about their reaction or approval. I had my grandmother's faith in me, Grace's unwavering support, Eliza's professional respect, and most importantly, my own growing confidence. Eleanor's gallery would open. My life would expand beyond the narrow confines my family had defined. And somewhere, I like to think, my grandmother was smiling. My first month of freedom passed in a whirlwind of activity. Under Eliza's exacting mentorship, I absorbed the practical aspects of gallery management, from properly lighting different mediums to the delicate dance of pricing artwork to benefit both artists and the business. Each day brought new challenges and revelations, leaving me exhausted but fulfilled in a way I'd never experienced working at Tidal Grounds. You have good instincts, Eliza told me one evening as we cataloged pieces for an upcoming exhibition. You see connections between works that others miss. Coming from her, the compliment felt monumental. Eliza wasn't one for empty praise. I've been thinking about the opening exhibition for Eleanor's, I ventured, carefully wrapping a small bronze sculpture. What if we focus on overlooked female artists from the region? Women who created remarkable work but never received proper recognition. Eliza paused, considering. Ambitious. Also potentially powerful. Do you have specific artists in mind? Several, including my grandmother. I'd been hesitant to mention this aspect of my vision, worried it might seem self-serving. She has a collection of works that no one's ever seen, paintings she created during her travels but never showed, because my grandfather thought art was a charming hobby rather than a serious pursuit. Eleanor Mitchell was an artist? Eliza looked genuinely surprised. I knew her as a collector, but I had no idea she created her own work. Few people did. She kept painting until her final year, but mostly stored her work in that attic studio. I've been going through it, and some of the pieces are extraordinary, especially her European series from the 60s. I'd like to see them, Eliza said, her professional curiosity piqued. If they're gallery quality, featuring your grandmother's work in the inaugural exhibition of a space bearing her name would create a compelling narrative. There's something else, I said hesitantly. In her journals, she mentioned connections with several female artists whose work has been largely forgotten. I think she may have collected their pieces as well, supporting them when galleries wouldn't. Eliza's eyes brightened with the thrill of discovery that all true art lovers share. A hidden collection of overlooked female artists, curated by a woman who understood their struggle because she lived it herself? Emma, that's not just an exhibition, it's a statement. We stayed late that night, sketching out plans for Invisible Women, the working title for Eleanor's opening show. With each passing hour, The concept evolved from vague idea to concrete vision, complete with potential layouts, accompanying essays, and educational programming. "This could put Eleanor's on the map immediately," Eliza said as we finally prepared to leave. "But you realize what this means, don't you? We need to accelerate our timeline. If we're featuring your grandmother's work, we should aim to open around the anniversary of her death, a tribute to her legacy." I checked the calendar on my phone. That's just 4 months away. Tight, but doable, especially if we narrow our initial renovation plans and focus on exhibition preparation. Eliza locked the gallery door behind us. "Are you prepared for what this might mean regarding your family? Once we announce an exhibition featuring Eleanor's personal collection, they'll know exactly where to find you." The question gave me pause. In the month since my confrontation with my parents, I'd had no direct contact with any Mitchell family members. Ryan and Olivia's wedding had come and gone, a lavish affair in Santorini, according to the society page of the Bayfield Chronicle. They were currently honeymooning in the Greek islands, while my parents had apparently joined them for an extended Mediterranean vacation. Their absence had given me breathing room to establish my new life without interference, but I knew it was temporary. Eventually they would return, discover I'd truly cut ties and redouble their efforts to regain control. "I can't hide forever," I said finally, "and I won't let them prevent me from honoring Grandma properly. If they show up at the opening or try to cause problems, we'll handle it." Eliza gave me an appraising look. "You've changed since we first met. There's a certainty to you now. I'm learning to trust myself." "Good. In this business, in life, that's the most valuable skill you can develop." The next morning, I met with a contractor at the Harbor District commercial space I'd secured for Eleanor's gallery. The building had once been a shipping office, with high ceilings, exposed beams, and large windows facing the water, perfect bones for a contemporary gallery. It needed significant renovation, but its potential was undeniable. Marco, the contractor, Eliza had recommended, walked through the space with me, making notes and occasional appreciative noises. "The structure is solid," he confirmed. "We can open up this wall to create better flow, upgrade the lighting system, and refinish these original hardwood floors. 4 months is tight but manageable if we prioritize." We discussed budget, timeline, and specific requirements for displaying delicate artwork. By the end of our meeting, I had signed a contract and written a deposit check that would have been unthinkable before my grandmother's final gift. "We'll start demo next week," Marco promised. Walking back to my loft, I felt a rare moment of pure contentment. Eleanor's gallery was no longer just a dream taped to my apartment wall, but a tangible reality taking shape day by day. I had a vision, resources, and a network of skilled professionals to help realize it. The moment was interrupted by my phone, buzzing with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Emma, it's Ryan. We need to talk. I'm back from honeymoon. Meet me at Lighthouse Cafe tomorrow, 2 p.m. My pulse quickened. How had he gotten my new number? I'd been careful to share it only with Grace, Eliza, Mr. Harrison, and the contractors. I texted Grace. "Ryan just contacted me on my new number. How did he get it?" Her response came quickly. "Not from me. Could be the contractor or someone at the bank? Small-town problems." She was right. Despite my precautions, Bayfield's interconnected social web made true anonymity nearly impossible. I debated ignoring Ryan's message but decided direct confrontation was better than looking over my shoulder. "Why should I meet you?" I texted back. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. "Because I'm trying to protect you from what's coming. Dad's escalating things. Please, 30 minutes. Public place." Against my better judgment, I agreed with conditions. 2 p.m. I'll stay for 15 minutes. If you bring anyone else or make a scene, I leave immediately. "Fair," came his terse reply. The remainder of the day was consumed with gallery preparations. Eliza and I visited an art storage facility where I'd secured a climate-controlled unit for my grandmother's paintings, carefully selecting pieces for potential inclusion in Invisible Women. "These are remarkable," Eliza murmured, examining a series of small but vibrant landscapes capturing European villages. "The perspective is unique, both intimate and somehow detached, as if the artist is both present and invisible." "That's exactly how Grandma felt in those places," I explained. She wrote about it in her journals, being free to observe and create in Europe in ways she couldn't at home, where she was always defined by her roles as wife and mother. We selected 12 paintings that showed the progression of Eleanor's technique and vision over decades, from her early experimental work to her more confident later pieces. Seeing them displayed together, work that had been hidden away in an attic, filled me with a complex mix of pride and sadness. How different might her life have been if she'd been encouraged rather than constrained? That evening, I received an email from Mr. Harrison. "Emma, I've received formal notice that your father intends to contest Eleanor's will regarding the Degas. As discussed, I've reminded his attorney of the potential consequences should he proceed. I recommend we meet tomorrow to discuss strategy. Are you available at 10 a.m.? T. Harrison." So that's what Ryan had meant about things escalating. Despite my warning about the damaging information Eleanor had preserved, my father was charging ahead with his challenge. I confirmed the appointment with Mr. Harrison, then tried to sleep, my mind racing with scenarios for both meetings tomorrow. Morning arrived with gray skies and a persistent drizzle that matched my mood. I dressed carefully. For my appointment with Mr. Harrison, a structured blazer over a simple dress, professional but not intimidated. The attorney's office was as calm and ordered as always, a sharp contrast to my internal unrest. "Your father is pursuing a novel legal strategy," Mr. Harrison explained, offering me coffee from his personal French press. Rather than directly challenging the will's validity, he's claiming the Degas was actually a joint marital asset between your grandparents, improperly disposed of by Eleanor without your grandfather's knowledge or consent. That's ridiculous. Grandpa died 15 years before Grandma. How could he contest anything now? Through your father as his heir. It's a weak argument legally, but it allows them to bypass the documents Eleanor left regarding your father's financial history. He stirred his coffee methodically. They're requesting a full audit of all assets and art purchases during your grandparents' marriage. Can they do that? They can request it. The court is unlikely to grant such a broad investigation for a specific bequest, especially given the time that has passed. However, it does suggest they're willing to drag this out and create expense and inconvenience. I considered this. They're hoping I'll get tired of fighting and agree to sell the painting to make it stop. That would be my assessment, yes. Mr. Harrison's expression remained professional, but I detected a hint of admiration. You understand their tactics well. I grew up watching them. I set down my untouched coffee. What's our response? Technically, we could simply wait for the court to deny their fishing expedition. However, I'm concerned they might escalate to more public tactics, perhaps contacting the media with suggestions of impropriety or unfairness. Would that work? Not legally, but it could create uncomfortable personal pressure. Small towns thrive on gossip, as you well know. I thought of my gallery plans, of the carefully cultivated relationships with contractors, artists, and potential clients. The last thing Eleanor's needed was to open under a cloud of family controversy. What if we offered a compromise? I said slowly. Not on the painting, but something else that would allow them to save face while dropping their challenge? Mr. Harrison raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? The house. My grandmother left it to my parents, but what if I offered to waive any potential claim on it in perpetuity? It's worth considerably less than the Degas, but it has emotional significance. Interesting approach. Are you sure you're willing to concede the house entirely? It does hold value, both financial and sentimental. I thought of the Victorian home where I'd grown up feeling invisible. The only part of that house that mattered to me was Grandma's studio, and I've already retrieved what's important from there. They can have the rest. Mr. Harrison made a note. I'll draft an offer for their consideration. It allows them to claim a settlement without actually gaining what they truly want. And if they refuse, then we proceed as planned, with the information Eleanor left as our last resort. My next meeting, with Ryan at the Lighthouse Cafe, weighed on me as I left Mr. Harrison's office. I arrived early, choosing a table with a clear view of both entrances to ensure he hadn't brought reinforcements. At precisely 2 p.m., he walked in alone, scanning the room until he spotted me. Ryan looked different somehow, still handsome in the conventional way that had always opened doors for him, but less certain. Marriage and honeymoon had not softened the hard edges of his expression. "Emma," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Thanks for coming." "You said Dad is escalating. I assume you mean the legal challenge to Grandma's will." He blinked, clearly surprised that I already knew. "Yes, he's hired Markson and Davis, top estate litigation firm in the state." "I'm aware. Mr. Harrison received their notice yesterday." Ryan leaned forward, lowering his voice. "What you may not know is that Dad is prepared to go nuclear on this. He's talking about having you declared mentally incompetent to manage your inheritance." This was news, and disturbing news at that. "On what grounds?" "He's gathering evidence of erratic behavior, cutting off family, changing your number, moving without telling anyone. He's even suggesting your gallery plan is evidence of financial irresponsibility." A cold anger settled in my stomach. That's beyond ridiculous. "I know." Ryan ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, a rare gesture of genuine agitation. "That's why I wanted to meet. This is getting out of hand." "And you're suddenly concerned about my welfare?" I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. "I'm concerned about what this is doing to the family. Dad's obsessed. Mom's a wreck. Olivia and I can't even enjoy being newlyweds because every conversation turns to the Emma situation. I'm sorry your luxury wedding and Mediterranean honeymoon were tainted by thoughts of the sister you helped rob." Ryan had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I didn't know where that money came from, Emma. Not until after you confronted everyone at the engagement dinner. And you didn't think to ask before spending my inheritance? Or to speak up once you knew?" "I should have," he admitted, surprising me with what appeared to be genuine remorse. But by then, deposits were made, flights booked. The Parkers had already invited their entire social circle. I couldn't just cancel. "Of course not," I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. The Mitchell family reputation always comes first. It wasn't just that. He stared into his untouched water glass. "I've spent my whole life trying to be what Dad expects. The right schools, the right career, the right wife. I don't know how to step off that path." For a moment, I glimpsed something unexpected. A crack in Ryan's perfect facade. A hint that perhaps my golden child brother wasn't as content as he appeared. "What do you want from me, Ryan? Why are we having this conversation?" He straightened, composure returning. "I want to broker a truce. Dad won't listen to reason, but he might listen to me if I can bring him an offer. Mr. Harrison is preparing something now, a concession on the family house in exchange for dropping the challenge to the Degas bequest." Ryan shook his head immediately. "Not enough. Dad sees that painting as his birthright, something that should have been disclosed and shared with the family. It wasn't his to share. Grandma bought it with her own money before they were even married. I believe you, but Dad won't. In his mind, Everything Grandma had belonged to the family collectively, not to her individually. I considered this, recognizing the fundamental difference in worldview. Then what would be enough? Because I'm not selling the painting or sharing the proceeds. Ryan hesitated. Would you consider loaning it to a museum, in the family name? The Mitchell collection has a nice ring to it, and Dad would get the social cachet without you actually giving up ownership. The suggestion wasn't entirely unreasonable. Museums often sought long-term loans of significant works, and it would protect the painting while making it accessible to the public. But something about the proposal struck me as off. Why would Dad settle for that when he's convinced he can get everything through legal means? Ryan shifted in his seat. Because I've convinced him the legal battle could get ugly and public, that it might affect his standing in the community and with clients. And suddenly he cares what I might reveal? He cares about his reputation more than anything, even more than the money. Ryan checked his watch nervously. Look, I need to get back to the office. Think about the museum option. It might be the cleanest resolution for everyone. As he stood to leave, a realization hit me. You haven't asked about the gallery, about my plans, or my life. He paused, genuinely confused. What? In this entire conversation about my future and my inheritance, you haven't once asked what I'm actually doing with it, whether I'm happy or successful or building something meaningful. Ryan looked momentarily ashamed. I assumed you were still planning the gallery thing. I am. It opens in 4 months. It's called Eleanor's. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, perhaps, of what our grandmother had meant to me. That's good, Emma. I hope it works out. After he left, I remained at the table, processing our conversation. Ryan's proposal wasn't without merit, but something about it felt orchestrated, as if I were being maneuvered into a position that appeared reasonable, but ultimately served my father's interests more than mine. I texted Mr. Harrison. Ryan suggested museum loan of Degas under family name as compromise. Thoughts? His response was characteristically measured. Potential option, but structure would be critical. Would need ironclad agreement about ownership, credit, duration, and conditions. Let's discuss after they respond to house offer. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of gallery preparations. I met with a lighting designer, approved final plans for the renovation, and began organizing transportation for my grandmother's art from storage to the gallery for the opening exhibition. That evening, I visited Grace at Tidal Grounds after closing. The cafe felt both familiar and distant, like a place from a previous life. So, Ryan is playing peacemaker now? Grace said skeptically after I recounted our meeting. Convenient. Timing, just as your gallery plans are becoming public knowledge. You think it's a deliberate strategy? I think your family operates like a well-oiled machine when their interests align. Your father provides the force, your mother the emotional manipulation, and now Ryan the reasonable middle ground. She wiped down the espresso machine with practiced efficiency. Has it occurred to you that they might be working together? Good cop, bad cop on a family scale? I hadn't considered that possibility, but it made disturbing sense. Ryan did seem unusually concerned about my welfare, given his past behavior. And conveniently appeared just as your father escalated legal threats. Grace hung the cleaning. Cloth to dry. What's your gut telling you? That I'm missing something. The museum loan idea isn't terrible on its face, but why is Ryan suddenly advocating for a solution that doesn't involve selling the painting? Exactly. What's their angle? Grace leaned against the counter. Have you told anyone about your opening exhibition featuring Eleanor's art? Just Eliza, the contractor, and a few potential artists. Why? Because if your family knows you're planning to publicly honor Eleanor with a gallery bearing her name, they might be trying to control the narrative. A museum exhibition of the Degas under the Mitchell family name would establish their connection to Eleanor's legacy before you can. The pieces clicked into place. They're trying to co-opt Grandma's legacy, to make it seem like they're honoring her wishes while actually undercutting mine. It would be consistent with their pattern, Grace said gently. They couldn't control the money, so they're trying to control the story. I sank into a cafe chair, the weight of continued manipulation settling over me. Will this ever stop? Will they ever just let me live my life? Grace sat beside me, her expression solemn. People who have controlled others don't surrender. That control easily, Emma. But that doesn't mean you have to keep playing the game. You have options they don't expect. Like what? What if you announce the gallery and exhibition publicly, immediately? Before they can establish their counter-narrative about Eleanor's legacy? I considered this. We weren't planning to make a formal announcement until renovations were further along. Plans change, a press release about Eleanor's gallery opening. On the anniversary of her death, featuring her never-before-seen artwork alongside other overlooked female artists. That's a story the local press would love. She was right. A public announcement would establish my connection to Eleanor's legacy, in a way my family couldn't easily undermine. I'll talk to Eliza tomorrow, I decided. If she agrees, we'll move up the announcement. Grace squeezed my hand. You're handling this brilliantly, Emma, standing your ground without becoming bitter. Eleanor would be so proud. Her words warmed me. But as I walked home through the quiet streets of Bayfield, a disquieting thought took hold. My family's persistent efforts to control my inheritance weren't just about money or even about pride. There was something else at stake, something that made them willing to risk public embarrassment and legal exposure. What was I still missing about my grandmother's legacy? The morning of Eleanor's gallery opening arrived with perfect early autumn sunshine, golden light filtering through the harbor mist. I'd been awake since dawn, too wired with anticipation to sleep. Today marked exactly 3 years since my grandmother's death, and the rebirth of her legacy in the form of the gallery that bore her name. I stood in the center of the main exhibition space, taking in the transformation. Marco's team had performed miracles in 4 months, turning the dilapidated shipping office into a sleek modern gallery while preserving its historic character. Polished concrete floors reflected the light from carefully positioned fixtures. The original brick walls provided perfect texture behind my grandmother's vibrant paintings. Custom-built display cases housed smaller works from the other invisible women artists we'd discovered in Eleanor's collection. It's stunning, Eliza said, appearing beside me. She'd become not just a mentor but a true partner in this endeavor. You've created something remarkable here, Emma. We did, I corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you. She shook her head. I provided guidance, but this vision is entirely yours. She glanced at her watch. 2 hours until the doors open. Are you ready? The question carried weight beyond the immediate preparations for today's event. In the 2 months since our conversation with Grace at Tidal Grounds, life had moved at a dizzying pace. We'd announced Eleanor's gallery with a media splash that exceeded our expectations. Front page of the Bayfield Chronicle, features in regional arts publications, even a mention in a national gallery industry newsletter. The public response had been overwhelming. My grandmother, it turned out, had quiet admirers throughout the community who remembered her kindness, her subtly rebellious spirit, and her eye for undiscovered talent. Many had stories about how she'd supported their creative endeavors when no one else would. The narrative around Eleanor's legacy had taken shape exactly as I'd hoped, defined by her generosity and artistic vision rather than my family's attempts to control it. My father's reaction to our announcement had been swift and predictable. First came legal threats, cease and desist letters claiming I had no right to use Eleanor's name or artwork. Then came financial pressure. He somehow convinced the bank to delay my construction loan, forcing me to liquidate some investments to keep renovations on schedule. Finally, when those tactics failed, came silence. Complete, unnerving silence. For the past 3 weeks, this final strategy worried me most. My father never abandoned a fight. He simply changed tactics when direct confrontation proved ineffective. "As ready as I'll ever be," I answered Eliza, pushing aside my concerns. Whatever came next, I wouldn't let it overshadow this moment. The gallery had been closed to the public during preparations, with only the installation team, selected artists, and our small staff allowed inside. For today's opening, we'd sent invitations to Bayfield's arts community, regional museum curators, and press. Notably absent from the guest list was my immediate family, a painful but necessary exclusion to ensure the day remained focused on celebration rather than confrontation. As our staff made final adjustments to the lighting and refreshment setup, I retreated to my office, a small but elegant space overlooking the harbor. On my desk stood a silver-framed photograph of my grandmother that Grace had given me, Eleanor in her 20s, standing before an easel in Paris, her expression a perfect balance of determination and joy. "I did it, Grandma," I whispered to the image. "I made your dream real." A knock at my door interrupted the moment. "Package for you, Ms. Mitchell," said Lucas, our gallery assistant. "Just arrived by courier." He handed me a small box wrapped in cream-colored paper with no return address. Inside was a vintage brass key on a delicate chain and a note in handwriting I recognized immediately. "For luck, I'll be watching from a distance. Grace." The key had belonged to my grandmother's Paris apartment during her year abroad, a talisman she'd kept until her death. Grace must have found it among Eleanor's things and saved it for this moment. I fastened the chain around my neck, the key resting against my collarbone like a blessing. In the weeks of frantic preparation, I'd seen less of Grace than I would have liked. She'd been dealing with a family emergency in Seattle, but had promised to return for the opening. This gift meant she was back in Bayfield, even if not yet at the gallery. At precisely noon, we opened the doors to the public. The response exceeded our most optimistic projections. Within an hour, the gallery was comfortably full, with a steady stream of visitors arriving every few minutes. Art lovers wandered through the space, lingering before my grandmother's paintings with genuine appreciation. Several red sold dots already adorned the display cards beside works from our featured contemporary artists. I moved through the crowd, discussing the exhibition with critics, accepting congratulations from fellow business owners, and sharing stories about Eleanor with those who had known her. The validation was overwhelming, not just of my gallery vision, but of my grandmother's artistic talent that had remained hidden for too long. "Ms. Mitchell?" A tall woman in impeccable business attire approached, extending her hand. "Vanessa." "Huang, curator at the Portland Museum of Modern Art. I was hoping we might discuss your grandmother's Paris series. It's quite extraordinary." As we walked toward the collection in question, Vanessa explained that the museum was planning an exhibition on women artists of the 1960s. Eleanor's work would be a perfect addition, especially these pieces showing the intersection of American and European perspectives. The conversation was everything I could have hoped for: professional recognition of my grandmother's talent, potential for broader exposure, and the beginning of relationships with major art institutions. As Vanessa and I exchanged contact information, I caught sight of a familiar figure near the entrance. Ryan stood just inside the doorway, alone and out of place in his corporate suit among the more eclectic gallery crowd. He wasn't causing a eye scene, just observing quietly, his expression unreadable from this distance. "Excuse me," I said to Vanessa. "There's something I need to address." I made my way through the crowd, bracing for confrontation. What was his angle this time? Another compromise proposal? A scene designed to undermine my moment of success? "Ryan," I said evenly when I reached him, "I don't recall sending you an invitation." "You didn't." His eyes scanned the gallery, taking in the crowds, the artwork, the success I'd created without any family support. I read about it in the paper. If you're here on Dad's behalf, I'm not. He shifted uncomfortably. I came because I wanted to see it. To see what was so important that you'd cut ties with your entire family. The statement could have been confrontational, but his tone suggested genuine curiosity. I studied his face, searching for signs of the manipulation Grace had warned about, but found only uncertainty. Look around, I said, gesturing to the gallery. This is what Grandma wanted for me. Not just the financial means, but the chance to create something meaningful, to build a space where overlooked artists can be seen and valued. Ryan moved toward the nearest display, examining one of Eleanor's early landscapes. She was talented, he admitted. I had no idea. None of you did. You were all too busy seeing what you wanted to see. He turned back to me, a flicker of genuine remorse crossing his features. Dad's not coming today. He wanted to, but Mom convinced him it would only cause a scene. They know about the opening? Everyone in Bayfield knows, Emma. It's all anyone's talking about. I processed this information, waiting for the usual anxiety that accompanied thoughts of my family's reactions. Surprisingly, it didn't come. I had built something true to my vision and my grandmother's wishes. Their approval or disapproval no longer defined my worth. Are you happy? Ryan asked suddenly. With all this? The question caught me off guard. So simple, yet something no one in my family had ever really asked me before. Yes, I answered, honestly. Happier than I've ever been. He nodded slowly. Good. That's good. He reached into his jacket and withdrew an envelope. I have something for you. From Grandma. My pulse quickened. What are you talking about? She gave me this years ago, made me promise to give it to you if you ever found your path, as she put it. I didn't understand what she meant until I saw the article about this place. I accepted the envelope cautiously. Inside was a folded sheet of my grandmother's stationery, dated about a year before her death. My darling Emma, if you're reading this, two things have happened. You've broken free from the constraints of family expectation, and Ryan has finally kept his promise to deliver this message. I've left you more than just financial means to pursue your dreams. I've left you permission to become fully yourself, even when that self doesn't fit the mold others have designed for you. The painting is valuable, yes, but it's also a key, proof, that a woman can make choices that outlive her, that resonate beyond the role she was assigned. I kept my artwork hidden because your grandfather couldn't see its worth. Don't make my mistake. Share your vision with the world. Claim the space you deserve. With all my love and pride, Grandma Eleanor. I looked up from the letter to find Ryan, watching me uncomfortably. Why now? I asked. Why did you wait all these years? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of genuine discomfort. I didn't think it mattered. I thought you were just being difficult about the money. It wasn't until I saw what you've built here that I understood what she saw in you. Around us, the gallery hummed with conversation and appreciation. My grandmother's artwork hung proudly on walls she had never expected would exist. Her legacy, not just financial but artistic and spiritual, had found its proper home. Thank you for bringing this, I said finally. Ryan nodded, already moving toward the exit. For what it's worth, I think she'd be proud. He paused at the door. We all made mistakes, Emma. Some worse than others. If you ever want to talk, not about the painting or the legal stuff, just as siblings, I'd like that. After he left, I returned to my office, Eleanor's letter still in my hand. Through the window, I could see the harbor stretched before me, boats rocking gently in the autumn sunlight. Beyond them lay the open water, the horizon, the endless possibility that my grandmother had glimpsed but never fully claimed for herself. I had broken the pattern. With Eleanor's foresight and my own determination, I had found a way to be seen, to be valued, to build something that reflected my true self rather than others' expectations. The gallery continued to fill with visitors, each one experiencing my grandmother's artwork for the first time. In allowing herself to be discovered posthumously, Eleanor had ensured that I would never again be the ghost in my own family, or in my own life. I touched the brass key at my neck and smiled. Some inheritances can't be stolen or sold. Some legacies exist not in objects, but in the courage they inspire. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.